Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush,
I'm Alex.
And I'm Cam.
and today we're going to discuss guilty pleasures in music. So, I think one of the main things I've learned to do when listening to music is separate the artist from the fan base, because I feel like the fan base ruins a lot of music for me. And so a lot of like the pop punk, the just old like classic pop punk like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco and My Chemical Romance, I still enjoy to a degree today, mainly because I don't try to get involved with their fan bases. I feel like the fan bases go a bit over the top and just ruin any significance of the album to the point where like you just don't really want to listen to them anymore.
Well, that's true of even critically acclaimed ones. Like Radiohead's fan base is probably one of the most toxic and least likable fan bases I've ever come across. They overhype and just glorify Radiohead to the point of where they're not even on the same level as any band. It's on Rate Your Music. I love Radiohead. I've said before in the other discussion, the future of how I got into music, that they were like one of my favourite bands for ages. I love them, and I might have even been part of this fan base, but they're just, if you criticise them in any way, they're just really unrealistic. So yeah, fan bases can really make you hate a band almost, or at least not like the community around it.
I tend to be able to ignore communities around bands, mostly because I don't really do anything that a normal fan, like quote-unquote fan, does. Like, I don't get to go to a lot of concerts. I don't really like hang out in YouTube comments watching music videos because, I don't really need the videos or anything when I can just listen to the song. I don't know. It just kind of confuses me when I see some people say, Radiohead fans are the most toxic fans or whatever, or metal fans are this, that, or anything. And like, just because I just get so little exposure to that sort of thing, I don't really see it. But like back when I was having trouble getting into Radiohead, I was frequenting IMDb's Music General board more than RYM, to the point that I think this was actually before I even made my first RYM account. And I was just like asking for help trying to get into them and see what people had to say. And like the only comment I remember somebody making was stick with Coldplay. And it's like, that was the most obnoxious thing ever. So it's just like...
Yeah, they tend to act like pretentious bastards, because like,
Yeah.
I've noticed that with like a lot. So like I enjoy like, I guess like metalcore, deathcore music, and like a lot of people don't like it because they it's whiny teenagers complaining about shit. But like obviously there are some bands that are just annoying and whiny like that, but there are some like gems in the pile of shit that metalcore is, and I feel like the people who complain about it are people who are pretentious and only listen to like just very abstract music and claim like, oh, you don't like it because you don't understand it, and you have to like a higher, like that's what's going on with like J. Cole. J. Cole is his all his fans are like, oh, you don't like it because you don't understand it, and it's like you need a higher level of intelligence to listen to it. But like, in all honesty, J. Cole is a good rapper, but he doesn't have much differentiation between his songs, so it gets kind of boring over time. And personally, I like J. Cole, but I can see why people are upset with that when they just get kind of bored with what he does.
Yeah, that seems to be the main like attack defense strategy with these fan bases, is always, oh, you don't understand them, you don't get their music. And yeah, that's always a bit disappointing to see that, because it can really just turn you off the artist completely.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say is that just having a bad fan base isn't enough to make an artist a guilty pleasure for me. Mostly because like I don't really know anybody else who has, the idea of Radiohead fans being snobs, for instance, unless they've tried getting into Radiohead and couldn't, and like sought out ways to do it. Like, so I'm still like, I wouldn't think twice or, check over my shoulder before I said I'm a Radiohead fan. To me, that's not necessarily what a guilty pleasure is. Like, I feel like maybe Juggalos are a bit more like maybe the most well-known obnoxious fan base.
Probably, yeah.
God, I hate
So, like-
the Insane Clown Posse.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got the kind of reputation where it's kind of hard to admit that you're a fan of them if you're not a hardcore Juggalo. And even, like, I've heard that the hardcore Juggalos, like the ones you think of, the ones who go to concerts naked and face painted and everything like that, they're, like, embarrassment to the quote-unquote real Juggalos. So it's like, who knows where these distinctions lie? So for me, like, a guilty pleasure almost, like, doesn't exist. But like I said in the How We Got Into Music discussion, that for me it was Simple Plan that provided me the gateway into a lot of stuff. And they would qualify if I still listened to any of their songs. I guess the next closest might be like Good Charlotte, because they, on the albums of theirs that I had, they had at least one or two or maybe even like 3 good songs on each of them. And the rest of them was just kind of crap, and I could tell even back then that they weren't all great, but I don't listen to any of their stuff anymore. And
Did you I had the album The Young and the Hopeless. I liked like a few songs, so I get what you mean. The Anthem I still think is a pretty decent pop punk song, but that might actually be nostalgia talking. But yeah, that would be a guilty pleasure for me too, that album. But I did give it to one of my friends, so I'd have to re-listen to it. But yeah, I didn't mind that.
Yeah, that was one of them. And I'm trying to remember. Actually, I don't think there was like anything on their first album that was really good. It was like really lame East Coast ska punk. Like, think about that. Ska punk usually comes from California, and they're from, I think, Maryland or something.
It's not like a really region. It's an odd region to make ska punk, but that's okay. Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, so I guess for me, like the closest thing I might get to having guilty pleasures is like if I was, driving around with some friends from high school who knew me when I had a certain taste in music, and they'd be surprised that I have a few songs by Lady Gaga or a lot by Taylor Swift on my phone. Even then, I'd just be like, yeah, people change, so what?
Yeah, for me,
Sorry.
a guilty pleasure would be like I like 21 Pilots. I know everyone hates them, but I enjoy their music mainly because their first album really clicked with me. The first album, the self-titled one that they don't sell, which is annoying, but I really enjoyed that album, and I think them as a band kind of grew on me over time, and I really enjoyed that first album to the point where it's one of my favorite albums. The products after that have been good, but definitely not as good as what their first album was.
Yeah, I'd give them a go. I've not heard them in an album context, but they're never the worst thing on the radio. I really like Stressed Out, for example, and I still think they've got more going for them than most stuff on the radio. Like all the people complaining about, they're either pop, rap, rock, or a combination of that. It's still like, who else has got that? Who's getting really big hits? Maybe a couple, like Lady Gaga can do that, or earlier on anyway, or she has done through her career. But really, I think that's something to be appreciated, and I'd give them a go.
Any other guilty pleasures?
I have. Yeah, it's the same thing with me as with Kat. Like, I don't consider myself to have really what people would define as a guilty pleasure. The closest to that would be, I was known as like a classic rock guy for ages and ages. Like, that was all I'd listen to. So the fact that I enjoy like Spice Girls and country, not even classic country, just country from the 90s and 2000s, would really baffle a lot of them. it's mainly just modern pop that in certain cases, that I just really, really like. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I don't know. It's a case for me where it's a case by case basis for me. I won't ever not try a genre based on a few songs that I don't enjoy by someone else. Like, I'm pretty sure there'd be loads of new metal or post grunge songs I'd enjoy, and in fact there are. Like Everlong by Foo Fighters is one of my favourite songs. Foo Fighters in general are great, and I don't know. It's just a case where I really enjoy what I enjoy, and I don't try and get labelled as anything. I just listen to what I enjoy.
I mean, besides that, like I think there's some just like individual, like Sum 41, for example. I started listening to them, and Linkin Park, I guess. I listened to them when I was really young, and now when I go back to the album, it's definitely not as good as what I once thought it to be, but it always like a soft place in my heart, so I come back to it from time to time, and I listen to it, even though I know it's not as good as I thought it to be. I still enjoy it, and that's kind of like my guilty pleasure.
Well, In Too Deep, I consider that like a low pop punk classic, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of like biased about a lot of like teen punk bands because of just because like that's the first exposure I had to like real music.
Well, that's another guilty pleasure for me. Would be like a lot of, I don't know, teen pop. Like, I actually listen to a lot of. They're not famous in the US, but JLS were a band, or not even a band, a formulated, very corporate pop act that are just. It's all to do with nostalgia, basically, and stuff that you can't let go of because you have memories attached to them, really. Like, if I started listening to them now, I wouldn't even consider talking about them favourably. And it's other stuff like that, like East 17, Stay Another Day. I'll really love that song. I don't mind some Backstreet Boys songs. Like I say, I've talked about the Spice Girls before, but I really do consider them to be one of the best pop acts ever. Commercial pop, I don't know, every single works for me. So I really don't know what constitutes how I like music or not, but I all I know is that I really do.
Yeah, I know.
So
Go ahead.
Sorry, here's kind of a sub question if we can get off onto it. Do you guys think that there's a difference between like a guilty pleasure and an artist that you actually think has a lot of great qualities, but other people just like don't see them for whatever reason? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think those two are completely different. So I think a guilty pleasure is something that you can acknowledge is not up to par, or it's just good music in general, but you still enjoy it because for whatever reason you do enjoy it, but you can admit to the fact that it's not as good as it is. Now, on the other hand, like for example, I think 21 Pilots are just kind of like an underrated band. I think they get a lot of bad reputation because of their fan base and the people who are like, if you don't like this, then you're garbage. And so I know like Anthony Fantano did a review of the album that came out maybe I think 2 years back, and he got a shit ton of dislikes on it just because the fan was like, they're like on the Reddit subreddit, they're like, oh, go dislike this video. He gave it a 4 out of 10. And he's entitled to his opinion, but I think that just kind of justifies the fact that fan bases can ruin bands, and I think that's the worst part about a band that does have potential because it gets ruined by the people who are 21 Pilots or Die kind of fans.
Yeah, I was actually watching that video the other day, and it had like 5,000 likes, 4,000 dislikes. And yeah, it really does depend on what the fans think for a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think there's just like, I think there's a lot of bands out there that have potential that maybe I get it and maybe other people don't. I don't know. It makes me sound kind of pretentious in the fact that like, oh, I'm the only one who can understand potential, but like, I guess everyone has a different thing they're looking for when they're listening to music, and I think maybe I'm not as critical as most people are. I still think I'm pretty critical because I refuse to listen to a lot of things, but I think overall there's quite a difference between being bad music and you liking it, and being music that you think that they still have something there, but people are not seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely the case.
Okay, just a question I thought I'd put forth.
I mean,
Well, I can't really think of any artists that I'd really call underrated that everyone hates. I mean, it's really just a case of... Well, there's also another thing of guilty pleasures is that we're thinking of like a lot of commercial mainstream stuff, but there's actually a weird subset of this term used for music that people who generally listen to modern pop, like top 40, they'll consider if you like an old 80s song, if you like an old Crowded House or even Nirvana song, that's a guilty pleasure because it's nothing to do with what they like. So there's a term of it just being something outside of what you're usually listening to, in a way.
I really wouldn't consider that a guilty pleasure. I think just diversifying your genres is something that isn't like, I don't know. I can't really put in my mind like something like a guilty pleasure. I mean, I don't really like country music, but I think Sturgill Simpson is one of the few exceptions that I have.
Well, that's good because a lot of people who say they don't like country, they like it when it's used in context with another genre, like Sturgill uses it with a more alternative rock sound, which makes it maybe more, I don't know, accessible, maybe?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
I don't know, I seem to like country in any form. I mean, okay, there are some cases where it is too cheesy, it's too corny, or it's just not exciting enough, because it still has to be a good song with at least somewhat reasonable lyrics for me to even like it, but, you know, there's a lot of good stuff out there, I'd say. A lot of, like, really good pop structured melodies in country that just get overlooked because of the genre. Yeah, I really love that.
Right now, I agree that expanding your horizons, like, you know, the bands that you choose to expand into don't necessarily, aren't automatically guilty pleasures just because they're not the kind of thing you normally listen to. But at the same time, I had a hard time embracing the fact that, you know, I bought, you know, Lady Gaga's, you know, Fame Monster double release, or, you know, a couple Taylor Swift albums. Like, I always made sure, you know, when I went to a thrift store, if I found one, I bought something manly to go along with it, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be hypocritical of me to say flat that, you know, absolutely expanding your horizons doesn't make whatever new thing you find a guilty pleasure, but, you know, because I did, like, it did take me a while to fully admit, open up to it, whatever, that, yeah, I am kind of getting into some of this stuff.
Well, I wasn't specifically saying that expanding horizons means that is a guilty pleasure. I was just meaning that they're from a different part of music listening to, I don't know, a dedicated music fan who listens to 8 albums a day. They listen casually, so if they... And music from the last 5 years would be what their, I don't know, headstone of listening would be from. I don't know, it's like an inverted way of looking at it. Probably not anything like it, but I don't know.
I mean, if there's anyone who wants to put out a few more guilty pleasures, I think we can call it a recording session.
I think I've said every one, basically.
Well then, thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers. If you like the video, then make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know your guilty pleasures in the comments below, and check us out on social media.